So I have the great honor and privilege of introducing our esteemed guest, who has an extraordinary resume. He's a leading educator and a successful entrepreneur. He's the founder and executive director of the Tulane University's Levi Rosenblum Institute for Entrepreneurship at the Freeman School of Business in New Orleans. He is the former CFO and a founding manager of Celestial Seasonings, and in addition to serving as the chair of the board of directors of Whole Foods Market, he serves on the board of other companies, some of which you have heard of: Traditional Medicinals, Sambazon, Manitoba Harvest, Next Foods, and quite a few others. John is also an active entrepreneur in venture capital, music, financial services, and banking initiatives dedicated to environmental sustainability. John holds a doctorate of economics from the University of Colorado at Boulder, and both a master's and a bachelor's degree in economics from the Louisiana State University. So thank you for joining us for an evening at the Epicenter. You have a very fascinating career, both within business and in academia. So I'm very curious about what inspired you to pursue a career in academia.
Well, I tried working for my father first.
Danger.
In chemical engineering, and I realized that was not going to be the best career path for me. It would ruin our relationship. So I was taking an economics elective at the time, so after 3 years in chemical engineering, I switched to economics and found something that I had a passion for. And once I graduated with my undergraduate degree in economics, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the infantry, and my choices were graduate school or Vietnam, and I suddenly got really interested in graduate economics. Whole Foods Store was a co-op that had started in New Orleans in 1978, and my friend Peter Roy from New Orleans was converting it from a co-op to a for-profit, and asked me to come on board, and I put some cash in and became the second largest shareholder and helped him put a board together. And Whole Foods Market at the time did not exist. But they merged two stores, Clarksdale Grocery and Safer Way. John Mackey and Craig Weller and Mark Skiles, I believe, with three entrepreneurs involved. And they actually asked Peter, because we were in something called the Natural Foods Network. I forget what we called it, but it was a best practices exchange in natural food retailing. And the folks at Whole Foods Market, particularly John, I think, talked to Peter about, hey, we like your name, with Whole Foods Store, but we'll be Whole Foods Market. You know, we'll never compete. We're in Texas, you're in New Orleans. Well, they bought us 7 years later.
Well, you know, I think it's really interesting the path and then the different businesses that you've been involved with in the natural foods world. And there's a link between all of these, as I perceive them, with respect to the application of principled business, or more of a mindfulness towards the bigger picture with respect to how one does business and also the people in the company. So I would be curious if you would be willing to share a little bit about what conscious capitalism means and social entrepreneurship, as sort of starting with a definition of what do those mean, maybe from more of your academic side. And then I'd like us to talk a little bit about how these businesses are exemplifying these principles and how they do what they do.
Okay, well, that's the question for the rest of the night, is that
Yeah,
it?
I think so. It's pretty big, I know.
I'll answer it in bits and pieces,
Good.
and then you can ask me more questions.
Okay, got it.
The terms social entrepreneurship, conscious capitalism, those terms didn't exist when I got involved with business school in 1982. And when we were starting these businesses in the 70s and 80s, and those terms didn't exist. But the idea behind what social entrepreneurship and conscious capitalism are, that was being manifested in these businesses. The businesses I've always wanted to get involved with, and have always been my driving decision in terms of choosing a business and people to get involved with and the business partners, has been to get involved in a business that can make a difference in the world, a purpose-based business that has a higher purpose beyond making money. And
that's not very American.
Sure it is. It's entirely American.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. But the terms, there's lots of terms for, or definitions for social entrepreneurship, but generally social entrepreneurship is a for-profit or a non-profit venture that was started with a specific social purpose in mind, to make the world a better place. And often social entrepreneurship ventures are many times non-profit, but they certainly can be for-profit. And they could address an environmental need, a social justice need. And they can take a variety of different forms, and arts, serve the arts. But conscious capitalism is also a purpose-based business, but it's specifically a for-profit business. And I think back to social entrepreneurship is really, it can be done on a small scale level, but it's really all about systemic change and trying to create something that can scale and grow and ultimately address the need that you started to address with on a global level. Now, not all social entrepreneurs get to that. Mm-hmm. They start often locally addressing issues, but some of them get to the point where they come up with a big idea and a big solution that can scale and grow and create systemic change. I would give an example of the Second Harvesters Foods Bank. There's the food share here in Boulder.
Right.
I helped start the Second Harvest Food Bank in New Orleans back in 1980 because there was such a huge hunger issue. And when I moved back to New Orleans, I was just startled by the poverty. Mm-hmm. I'd been away for 16 years, 10 in Boulder, 6 in Baton Rouge, and I moved back home. And I wanted to get involved by doing something about hunger. But that was a small idea then, the whole food banking idea. That's a national network of food banks now that source food to redistribute. And there's actually been national legislation passed to encourage manufacturers and retailers to donate food.
Donate, right.
Because they get tax advantages for donating it. But that was an example of a social entrepreneurship venture that was able to scale and grow. Conscious capitalism is really all about taking many of the principles of social entrepreneurship and focusing them specifically on the for-profit sector. Mm-hmm. And conscious capitalist businesses are all about being mission-driven, purpose-driven. They have a higher purpose. And that is one of the key characteristics. They can only exist in the kind of society we have, where there's a free market economy, and there's private property, and a rule of law. That's what enables them to exist. But conscious entrepreneurs start purpose-based businesses, and then they focus on achieving their higher purpose. Now, the other thing they look at is they are aware of all their stakeholders, their employees, their customers, of course their shareholders who put up the capital to get the business started, their community, the government. And what conscious capitalism is all about is optimizing the alignment of the stakeholder interest, rather than being driven primarily by maximizing profit. The goal is, let me optimize the alignment among the stakeholders in order to achieve sustainability so I can fulfill my purpose.